Finley to throw. Over the middle, intercepted. Wolfuk again. Wolfuk the other way at the 30, the 40. Wolfuk to midfield. Miles Wolfuk with the pick. The Heels on the doorstep of an enormous victory. Williams is the running back next to Howe. Play action. Howe will now lob it down the near side. Newsom with a man all over him. Pins the ball against the back of the defender and brings it in. Heels can get a first down at the 3. Now, one fake to the right. Now he's going to run to the left. Howe at the 5. Takes the shot. Pinballing off the chains for the touchdown. Howe showing the toughness for 6.
Cardinals down 4, 35-31. May has the shotgun snap. Pressure coming. Rolls to the right.
Goes to the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown, Antoine Green! 16 seconds to go. No flag.
Snapping it off the 8-yard line. May pulls it, tries to roll it apart.
Now he's going to throw it and score! Throws it to Paytor in the end zone for the touchdown. They are throwing a play for left-handed. Was walking out on the run and threw it left-handed. Bernard fields it at the 26. Heading to the far side. Theo at the 35. Theo, he's at the 50. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Theo into the Cajun for a touchdown. Are you kidding me?
What's going on, guys? Welcome into another edition of the Heel Tough Vlog podcast. It's your host, Anthony Pagnotta, here with you guys as always. And tonight, it is time to dive into the 2026 recruiting class that signed for Carolina during the early signing period. I know that we did not get to this the other night when we were supposed to on Wednesday night. I was working, unfortunately. And then last night, we didn't get to it because there was so much news on the transfer portal side of things. Now, don't get it wrong. There's a ton of stuff on the transfer portal that we're going to be talking about here over the next couple of days for you here on the Heel Tough Blog podcast. There were some big entries that into the transfer portal earlier today that you guys can read about on the website by just going to HeelToughBlog.com. We encourage you guys to do that here after the podcast is over later on this evening. Make sure you guys go and check that out. A couple of significant portal entries throughout the evening. So, this has been a crazy time for Carolina, and it's a big part of the reason why the feeling around the program is one that's a little confusing. I think for some people, they want to be really excited about this recruiting class. I think for other people, they want to be really concerned about the transfers. I think then there's a group that's kind of in the middle, and I'm more towards in the middle, a little bit concerned about some of the transfers, some of the guys that are entering the transfer portal. But, in terms of this recruiting class, I don't see any way that you could be concerned with what Carolina has done so far in this class. I don't think they're going to do much more. I think this is probably going to be it. 39 signees in this early signing class. And I think unless there really is someone that just ends up popping up on the radar, I know guy that Carolina was talking to earlier on in the recruiting cycle, Xavier McDonald, a 4-star wide receiver. They actually hosted him for an official visit at one point. He has now popped back up as a guy that is no longer committed to Sacramento State. So could that potentially be a possibility? I guess you never really know. It looks like he's probably going to head to Colorado, though. So I would think that the February class is going to be pretty light for Carolina. Last year was where they did a lot of damage in February. This year, most of it is going to come here in December. And so we're going to take you through the class tonight. We're going to go through all 39 guys in this class here this evening. So I get it, guys. It's a little bit late. If you guys are wanting to watch this one back, it makes plenty of sense. But of course, we're going to start with the big name guys. We'll eventually get to some of the smaller guys, to some of the guys in the class that were the lower ranked guys as we go throughout this evening. But lock in with us here. Let us know your thoughts on the recruiting class as well. Just thoughts off the top on this recruiting class. For me, my thoughts off the top is that this is a pretty stacked class. I think there are some areas where Carolina really hit it hard, the cornerback spot especially. That was an area that Carolina needed to go out and get some guys in this class. They went out and got some guys. I think up front, that was an area where a lot of people were thinking, hey, you've got to add some size. It has to happen. You have to bring in guys that are legitimate on the offensive line, that have these bigger frames, guys that play a little bit more physical. I think Carolina got that. I think that's certainly something that you like. Now, again, this is all showing up on high school film. So how does it translate to the college level? I think it eventually will. My question is, how quickly is this staff wanting these guys to contribute? That's going to be one of the most important things when it comes to this class and the success of this class. If the staff is banking on these guys all being ready in year one, then I think it's going to be a sad reality that that's not necessarily going to be the case. But if you give them time to build, I feel like these are going to be guys that 2-3 years down the line are going to be good. The question is, will the staff still be in place during that time? That's going to be the big question. You look at the rankings, the class rankings overall for this class. 24/7 Sports has it ranked as the number 17 class overall, the number 3 class in the ACC. Never really moved much in the last couple of months for Carolina. Was really steady. Really, the last month was really steady in that area. Meanwhile, over on On3/Rivals, of course, they combined as a site here since the last time that we did high school recruiting stuff here on the, when we broke down a class. So they put out one grade, one class ranking. They have Carolina 18th overall, third in the ACC. And then there's ESPN, who really likes what Carolina did, number 12 overall and number 2 in the ACC. And this is a loaded class, good group of 4 stars with, a solid group of 3 stars, a lot of 3-star guys that are in the area of being 4-star type prospects, guys that are in that blue chip area. And some guys that I think, even though they're ranked outside of that blue chip area that we talk about here on the podcast, which is inside that top 500, really believe these are guys that are really solid players. And I'll go throughout that through that as we go throughout the evening. All right, let's dive into the class, and we'll start with the guys that are ranked. This is according to the industry rankings from from On3 and Rivals, because they combine all 3 of the major websites. I think 24/7 Sports, their composite ranking only combines 24/7 Sports and On3 and Rivals. So I think the more comprehensive one to go with is the one that includes ESPN. So that's where I will go in terms of the order in which we are going to go with these guys. And so with that, we'll kick it off with Jacob Witherspoon, the safety out of Avon High School in Avon, Ohio. He is a guy that, according to the industry ranking, is number 134 overall, the number 12 safety in the class. And when I did the breakdown of him, I thought one thing that really sticks out about him, 5'10", 172 pounds. Most people are going to look at that and say incredibly slight of frame. But I think, as I wrote down in his scouting report when I wrote it, he is as complete of a safety as you are going to find in this class. I think really the first thing that he shows is the motor. It's definitely there. That's something that you want, no doubt about it. But when you combine it with the speed, which is very impressive, and his ability to break on the football, it makes life pretty tough for opposing quarterbacks. He's going to be a guy that, even though he doesn't pile up interceptions, he's going to do a good job of making plays on the football and coming away with important pass breakups. He gets in and out of breaks smoothly and efficiently. And when he is forced to play in one-on-one coverage, he does handle his own pretty well. So I think all of those things you really like. Then you have the question of, well, how good is he as a run defender? I think he boasts some nice physicality to go along with the speed, which leads to big-time hits. That's really what you're looking for. Also a strong tackler, and does a good job of wrapping up in open space to avoid big plays. I really think he's a very solid guy in this class. I loved it when Carolina signed him on. Do I think that he's the best player in this class? I personally do not. I do not think he is the top. He should be the top ranked player in this class, but I do think his ranking is justified. I think he is certainly a guy that Tar Heel fans should be very high on coming into this year. There's going to be opportunities for him right out of the gate because Carolina is going to lose Will Hardy and Gavin Gibson, the two starters at safety, to graduation. So this is certainly a guy that I can see factoring in his first year in Chapel Hill. You move on to Kenton Dobson. He comes from Miami Norland High School in Miami, Florida. He is ranked as the number 147 overall prospect and the number 20 cornerback. Dobson, I wrote this in the scouting report, is the type of corner that the Tar Heels were lacking in the class. Were lacking in the class before they got him. He thrives in man coverage, especially in press man situations. This is something that Carolina is going to want to do more of starting next year, is get guys that can play in those press man situations, be a little bit more physical at the line of scrimmage, especially if they're going to play as much man defense as they did this year. In terms of opening his hips, it looks really smooth, and that allows him to stick with receivers really well on routes deep down the field. His ability to play the football is encouraging, and he brings a level of physicality that will be more than welcomed at the cornerback spot. That's one thing that I think is very important. You're looking for guys that play physical no matter where they play. I think this is one of those guys that plays physical at the cornerback spot. It's going to allow him to succeed. He also excels at breaking on the football, which allows him to make so many plays on the ball. I think this is a guy, and again, this is another guy that I don't think he should be the top ranked player in this class, but I really love him. I think, especially with the length that he brings, he's certainly a guy that at 6 foot, 185 pounds, has the size to play on the outside. That's really where Carolina is going to be looking to play him. He's a guy that, according to two of the websites, is ranked inside of the top 100. So this is someone that the sites, 24/7 Sports is a little bit lower on him. The other two sites are very high on him, and they believe that he is going to be a really, really good player. So I think he certainly is someone that can come in and factor in. The one thing that is a little bit concerning about him in terms of how he ended up at Carolina is the fact that it was really just a money thing for him. So how much motivation is that going to be for him to play at a high level on the field? I think that's going to be important to sort of monitor as you go throughout the year. But I definitely think that this is a guy, if you just look at his skill set, he is definitely going to be someone that can challenge to, play a significant role this year for Carolina, potentially even start at one of those cornerback spots. I mentioned it when we were talking last night, though. One thing that I do want to caution people on and caution the coaching staff on when it comes to a guy like Dobson, we have seen this before where Carolina's rushed true freshman corners onto the field, and it hasn't necessarily worked. Be careful with Dobson. Don't rush him out there. And the other thing is, if he struggles a little bit, don't completely bail on him. Carolina did this a couple of times. Patrice Rene, they bailed on and eventually came back to him, and he was successful enough for Carolina. But I think the same thing happened with a guy like Dante Balfour, who, went to Charlotte, was very successful, and got himself a second opportunity with the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Not sure exactly how he's doing this season, but certainly a guy that I think Carolina could have used at the cornerback spot this year. That certainly would have been someone to use. I mean, he did pretty solid year, not a starter all year for Texas A&M, but a pretty solid, or for Texas Tech rather, for Dante Balfour, but a pretty solid year overall for him. So hopefully Carolina, is smart about how they use Dobson, maybe rotate him with a guy that they bring in from the portal and allow him to get comfortable in his first year with the program. Now we get to the guy that I think is the best player in this class that Carolina got, and that is 4-star athlete CJ Sadler. There is so much to love about this dude, man. He plays on both sides of the ball. I think a lot of people are having visions of Travis Hunter for him. I would caution people to be a little bit careful with that. You're talking about a guy that won a Heisman Trophy, that was as elite as really any athlete that we've seen in the sport in a while. You're asking a lot for a guy to come in and replicate exactly what he was able to do. But do I think he's someone that could thrive on both sides of the ball? I do. Sadler, one of the smallest guys that Carolina has in this class, I think might be the smallest at 5'9.5", 185 pounds. But he, is certainly capable of playing both sides of the ball at a pretty high level. For him, he has a huge catch radius for someone who is short, and he does a great job of creating separation and finding ways to get open. His route tree, pretty complete, and his route running is very crisp, which makes him a tough cover. He does a good job of catching the ball with his hands as opposed to allowing the ball to get into his body. That's something that I really focused on when I was going through and watching some of these guys, was who were the guys that were able to catch the ball with their hands. I think he's certainly going to be a reliable receiver that can be counted on. After the catch, he's pretty shifty, which allows him which makes him difficult to tackle when you pair it with his promising speed. Not a guy who's going to absolutely blow you away with his speed, but definitely a lot of promise there. So offensively, really what Carolina's looking for in the slot. Immediately, I think he can be a contributor there. Defense, I think, is probably the place that you question him a little bit more. Not that you question his talent there, but Carolina is bringing back their starting nickel from this past year in Caleb Cost. They also have a guy that played a lot there in Trey Miller. Those guys, they weren't perfect, so maybe there is an opportunity for him to start there, but I would feel like slot is probably an area where he's going to get a really good opportunity because no one was really able to step up there. And the one guy that, had his moments at that position, I think, in Javarius Green, he entered the transfer portal earlier today. So certainly going to be some options for him there in that slot if he enrolls early and really impresses. On defense, I think he looks like the perfect fit for a nickel corner spot. He's a guy who can thrive in either man or zone coverage because of the speed that he brings to the table and the fact that he is so good when it comes to playing the football. Where he really shines is as a tackler because he does a great job of not over pursuing or taking bad angles to the ball carrier. That's something that you really like to see. He's still aggressive, though. That's something that isn't an issue with his game, is that he is going to be able to get after ball carriers, bring them down for losses. He's not afraid of playing with physicality and is a sure-handed tackler, as you're going to find at a corner spot. Size is the big concern with him, but it shouldn't take him long to contribute considering the level of competition that he faces at the high school level and how he shined in the camp setting when he was matched up with some of the best in the country. I have no worries about him. I think he is a bona fide superstar for Carolina in this class. And when I say superstar, I don't think he's going to be on Travis Hunter's level, but I could see this being a guy that with, however many years he sticks around, he could be somebody that out of the slot, if he can win the way that I saw him win at the high school level, he's going to put up big numbers. With similar numbers to what we saw maybe from a guy like Josh Downs, maybe like we saw from Ryan Switzer. So superstar maybe a little bit too much. But I would say a star player, I think you've certainly got that in the form of C.J. Sadler. All right, now we move on to the starting quarterback. Eventually, the starting quarterback you would think at some point for Carolina, in four-star quarterback Travis Burgess, the number 189 overall prospect, the number 12 quarterback. Again, the reason why is that there are there's one website, 24/7 Sports, who really believes in him, believes that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country. And then there's two sites, On3 and Rivals and ESPN, who do not believe that he is one of the best in the country. Burgess, certainly the type of guy that Carolina thinks fits well for what they're looking for, and I think really fits what we have seen in the past from Carolina at the quarterback position. Has an ideal frame at 6'5", 205, and has plenty of arm strength to go with it. He combines his strong arm with nice accuracy at all three levels of the field. Does a great job of navigating pressure in the pocket, keeping his eyes downfield, and his footwork is incredibly promising, especially for someone at the high school level. He gives a good job of making plays on the run and is an extremely effective runner when he chooses to tuck the ball and run. Did it a little bit more in the games that he had this season as a starter for them before he, of course, goes down with the ACL injury. Biggest concern is going to be the ACL injury and the fact that he is only a one-year starter at the high school level. But the promise is there like he showed last season, and he is certainly one that Tar Heel fans should be excited about and has a chance to be the next standout quarterback for the team. I truly believe that he's a guy that when you come back to this class, he's going to be a building piece, one of the main foundational pieces of this class. We've talked about, a group of guys that I think are going to be right there at the top, could challenge just to play early. I don't think that necessarily is going to be the case for Burgess. Like, I don't see him playing this year. That's a tough injury to come back from. I think they're going to really focus on rehab. But maybe this is where Carolina goes into the portal, gets a guy that is a senior to come in, experienced quarterback that can put together a pretty solid year this year. And then the transition is eventually there to Burgess, or at least to, him, Arturi Newkirk, Bryce Baker battling at the quarterback position. I could definitely see that. I think Burgess is a great addition for Carolina in this class, and is more the prototypical guy that Carolina is looking for than, let's say, an Arturi Newkirk, who I think, has some ability, but isn't nearly as polished as a guy like Burgess. I thought Bryce Baker was that guy. I think he still has a chance to be a really good quarterback at this level, and I think if they let him and Bryce Baker battle, if they let him and Travis Burgess battle, that is, then I think you would have a pretty solid quarterback battle on your hands next season. I think this year you have to go and probably get someone out of the portal, though. All right, you move on to four-star wide receiver Keon Chapman. They call him Red. He is the number 201 player in the class, the number 33 wide receiver. And I wrote down when I watched him, Chapman is everything that you're looking for in a number one receiver. At 6'5", 215 pounds, he has a really nice frame, uses it well to box out defenders and catch the ball as he's absorbing contact. After the catch, the frame combines with the physicality that he plays with to allow him to shed tackles and pick up these very important yards after catch. When it comes to him actually catching the football, he has reliable hands and has a big catch radius that allows him to haul in just about anything that's thrown his way. Prior to catching the ball, he does a good job of creating separation, and his promising speed and polished route running with a route tree that is as full as any in the class. Chapman has all of the tools to come in and be the next great receiver at Carolina, but at the least he has the talent to be a contributor early for them in his time there. The way that he's built, I think, is the key. He's a guy that's going to be able to handle a lot of physicality. He's going to be able to play through a lot of physicality. And so that's going to be something that I think is going to be really interesting. Do I look at him as a guy that can take the top off of the defense? No. That's why while I do think he could contribute early for Carolina, and I think there will be, a good chance for him to do so, he's not the guy that Carolina was missing in the offense this year. I think what he does is somewhat similar to what Jordan Shipp does. I think Jordan Shipp is a guy that can handle a lot of physicality. You just never really saw it this year until maybe late in the season. You saw that jump ball that they threw to him in the game against Duke. There were a couple of times where he was able to fight through contact to be able to make catches. That's what you're going to see with Keon Chapman. I think looking at it, probably, not nearly the physical specimen that a guy like DK Metcalf is. A.J. Brown, probably another really solid comparison for the type of receiver that I think he can be at this level. Those are the types of guys that I think of when I watch Keon Chapman, and I think he's going to be a guy that will be able to grow in this system for Carolina. Could come in and contribute early, but will be able to grow in this system, hopefully under a new offensive coordinator as we continue to wait for that. But really like what he brings to the table. I think he's a really good number one receiver at some point for Carolina in his career. Now we get to the defensive line. 4-star defensive lineman Vodney Cleveland out of Parker High School in Birmingham, Alabama, the number 252 overall prospect and the number 29 defensive lineman. Cleveland, a huge player, 6'4", 305 pounds, already has impressive size and can fit at either defensive tackle spot for the team this upcoming season. He thrives as a bull rush specialist who simply overpowers guys to get into the backfield and make plays. There are multiple times on film where he simply throws offensive linemen to the side and makes plays, showing just how powerful his upper body is. With his level of physicality, he doesn't have to use the technical moves to get off of blocks often, but when he does, they are effective. He has a strong release off the line of scrimmage as well, which puts him in an advantageous situation right out of the gate against some of these interior offensive linemen. Makes him hard to stay in front of. He is the perfect addition to a Tar Heel team that needs talent at the position and could be someone that has an early effect in Chapel Hill once he gets to campus. I love him. I really do. I think he's probably, a class where you do have another 4-star defensive lineman. I think he's a little more polished than a guy like Trayshawn Ruffin. But I think, both guys have plenty of potential and can really turn into a great duo for Carolina. This is the reason you wanted to get Vodney in, is because if you play him alongside a Ruffin at some point, it's a lot of size, man. That's some tough guys to have to run through. And you saw as the season went along, some of the smaller guys that Carolina has on the offensive line right now, on the defensive line right now, weren't necessarily able to withstand some of the offensive lines that they were playing against. I think with Cleveland, with Trayshawn Ruffin, and with some of the other guys that will eventually factor in this class. We'll talk about David Jackson a little bit later. I think those are all guys that are going to eventually be able to rotate without much issue. Cleveland, I think he's a guy that could be part of the rotation this coming season. Carolina is losing. Are they losing anybody there? I'm thinking Mims, Leroy Jackson will be back. Those two are both going to be back. DeAndre Robinson can return, and so can Isaiah Johnson. So everybody can return from that group, but a guy like Vodney might just be talented enough to take one of those rotation spots away from those guys if they don't necessarily succeed this year. But I think that's the other thing that you really like, right? Is that position has all those guys from this past year. So let's say Vodney does need a little bit of time. He won't necessarily be forced onto the field, but I think he's going to be a really stout guy in the middle for them. So I definitely think he's someone that Carolina fans should be excited about. All right, we move on. 4-star linebacker DQ Forkpa out of St. Francis Academy. He hails originally from Houston, Georgia. He is the number 299 overall prospect and the number 16 linebacker prospect in this class. Forkpa, very versatile athlete that should be able to play off the ball or on the edge for Carolina when he arrives to campus. He has the speed to succeed at either position, and his motor allows him to make just about any play on the field. His ability to get in and out of breaks quickly allows him to succeed in coverage, something that will allow him to get on the field quicker when he arrives. He is a strong tackler that can take aggressive angles to the football because of his speed and athleticism. Like him as a pass rusher, does a great job of winning off the snap and will cause a lot of problems for tackles that he is matched up against. I envision him, when I watched his film, I looked at him as someone that is very similar to what you saw from Andrew Simpson this year, because Carolina liked to line Simpson up on the edge. They like to use him basically as a pass rushing linebacker. And I think that certainly is something that Forkpa will have the ability to do. I think he's got a chance to be an early contributor at Carolina because of just how versatile he is, the high motor. And yeah, the linebacker spot is incredibly thin, guys. You just lost Kamori House to the transfer portal. Now, again, as I told you last night, not exactly heartbroken over it because there are, some reports that this was something that was, a month in waiting. It seems like nobody was really surprised by him leaving, and his play the last 3 games of the season wasn't exactly great. But with him gone, Andrew Simpson gone, and Mekhi Bayer gone, that means that Carolina has to find a way to get some depth in this room. They have to find a way to get some talent in this room, and they were able to do that here in this recruiting class. But Forkpa is certainly a guy that could get on the field early for Carolina because of just how versatile he is and the amount of things that he can do. And if he could show that he can be used a similar way to what we saw from Andrew Simpson, he'll have to play with a lot of physicality like Simpson did. But if he can show that, then he's going to be a guy that has a chance to factor in this season for Carolina. You move on to Calvin Thomas, another 4-star linebacker in this class at a Cy Ranch High School, hailing from Houston, Texas. He is the number 316 overall prospect in the class, the number 18 linebacker in the class, measures in at 6'3", 210 pounds, and is an aggressive downhill linebacker who loves to make plays in the run game. His mindset makes him an effective off-ball linebacker, and his ability to shed blocks easily allows him to make plays in the opposing backfield and also be a factor when it comes to being a run defender and a blitzer. He has great lateral speed, and the sideline to sideline speed shows up as well. And even though he doesn't utilize that as much on film, that's certainly something that it feels like he's able to do. There should be no questions about his motor, which is very similar to a lot of the other guys in this class. It runs hot at basically all times. And he's a guy that we don't see drop into coverage much, suggesting that's an area to work on, but he has an he does bring some athleticism with what he's able to do. So this should be an area that he will be able to get better in once he gets to Chapel Hill and starts working on it at the college level. Love this addition at the time when Carolina got him. I think he is a guy that, again, very similar to Forkpa, especially with how athletic he is going to be able to factor in for Carolina. I really do think that he is someone that makes a lot of sense, can come in here, immediately contribute for Carolina at that linebacker spot. And I think that should have Carolina fans excited. Now, do I think he's going to be, immediately a great player? Potentially not. But I mean, if you have Forkpa and Calvin Thomas both getting some reps in important snaps, it doesn't have to be all the time. Similar roles maybe to what we saw from Tamir Hickman-Collins this year, if you really like some of the linebackers that you get in the portal, because, guys, these two dudes are not going to come in and burn it up that much. It's a lot to ask. Maybe one of them comes in and really surprises, and they do end up starting him at the beginning of the year, but I find it hard to believe both guys do that. But still, I do think if you could get, one or both of them in a similar role to what you saw this year, late in the year from Tamir Hickman-Collins, what you saw in certain situations, how they used Greg Smith, who was a hybrid linebacker safety, where they just find certain packages for these guys. I think they can certainly make an effect early on because of how purely athletic they are. And with Calvin Thomas, I just love the motor. I love the downhill mindset that he has, trying to seek out contact and make plays. So certainly a guy that I really like in this class, and I think we're going to be talking about for a while here. All right, you move on to 4-star wide receiver Carnell Warren out of Bluffton High School in Bluffton, South Carolina, the number 332 overall prospect and the number 52 wide receiver prospect. Measures in at 6'4" and a half to 195 pounds. Very complete receiver who can affect the passing game at all 3 levels. Does a really good job of creating separation at all levels of the field because of his strong route running and the speed that he has as well. really strong hand catcher of the football. That's, again, one of the big things I was looking for. How reliable are these guys? You need to see them catch the football with their hands. If they do, that shows you've got a reliable guy as opposed to someone that has to let the ball into their body very often. I think he certainly does a good job of that, and it shows up on his film, especially on the plays deeper down the field where he's able to haul in some of those catches that are way out in front of him. Uses his size well when he's playing 50-50 balls, primarily in the red zone. And that's something that, Carolina fans should be excited about, because this year you had a guy that could do that in Jordan Shipp. They just didn't necessarily show it to you all the time. I think Warren's a great fit alongside Keon Chapman and gives Carolina two legit playmakers in this class that should be a major part of the receiving corps for years to come. This is another guy where I don't think he's going to be able to take the top off of the defense. That's not necessarily how he wins. But if he's able to do some of the things that he was able to do at the high school level successfully, he could find himself on the field this year. He is certainly someone with that big frame that Carolina is going to want to throw to. These quarterbacks are going to want to throw to. And the thing I really like about him is, as I mentioned, he affects every level of the game. So yes, he's not just a pure downfield guy, but he did have an effect in that area. That's not necessarily the strength of Keon Chapman winning downfield, not quite like Carnell. So I think there's a chance that Carnell Warren, that might be the name that we're talking about, rolling out there potentially as a starter in week one. I think Carolina is probably going to go in the portal at wide receiver as well. There are a lot of positions. I know it seems like it's stacking up just about every position that I say. Carolina, is bringing in a freshman, and I think they can contribute. I'm saying also I think they need to go into the transfer portal. I wouldn't mind getting some veteran help here, but I will say with the two guys that you have here, another guy that I really like that I'll tell you a little bit about later in Chemistry Young, I do think that you can go out, you can get someone that has a little bit of history, but it doesn't have to necessarily be a top-end wide receiver, someone that is guaranteed to start the entire year. I think this is a position where you can bring in someone that's pretty solid, maybe can provide a little bit of depth for you if one of these guys really breaks out. I think that's going to be interesting to monitor as we go throughout the coming months here, especially when Carolina starts looking in the transfer portal. All right, we move on to the last four-star in the class. Again, this is according to On3/Rivals industry composite rankings. That would be four-star defensive lineman Trayshawn Ruffin out of North Duplin High School in Mount Olive, North Carolina. Number 334 overall prospect, the number 39 defensive line prospect. I mean, guys, when I wrote about Trayshawn Ruffin, I simply put the dude's a monster in the middle of the line that clogs everything up, especially in the run game. He does a tremendous job of of shedding blocks and making plays on the ball carrier in the backfield. Strong upper body that allows him to just throw blockers aside at times. When he gets to the ball carrier, he treats them like they are ragdolls, simply just throwing guys to the ground. He has some nice athleticism for his size, which allows him to cover multiple gaps. And that's something that Carolina really needs with his size. And I think this year you really saw it on some of his senior film. He took a big step this year. I think this dude is really going to be an impactful player for Carolina, whether it's this coming year or if it's a year or two down the line. But I think because of the size, we've talked about how important it is to have guys that can really slow down the run for Carolina consistently. This is a guy that really seems based in that area. Don't think you're going to get much from him as a pass rusher. I really don't. But I think he is a guy that specializes in stopping the run. That's the biggest thing that he's going to do when he gets to Carolina, is he's going to be someone that can clog the middle for them, plays with some toughness. That motor, very high motor as well. So I think this is going to be a guy that we're going to be talking about for a while. one of the original guys committed to this class, one of the best recruiters for this class. So you can tell there's a passion for Carolina. There's a passion to be on this roster. I think he is going to be a guy that is really going to succeed for Carolina along the defensive line. It's just the matter of time. How long does it take him to really get into the right shape to be on the field at Carolina, the way that Carolina wants to get him? I think they did a really good job probably of talking with his high school staff this year of getting him in the area that they want him in terms of weight, in terms of some of the areas of strength that they wanted him to work on. And so I wonder if this is a guy that Carolina looks at and says he can play early for this group this year when they step out onto the field. All right, move on to 3-star offensive tackle JB Shabazz out of East Forsyth High School in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The number 432 overall prospect, the number 33 offensive tackle. There's a lot to like about his game. As is the case with most of the offensive linemen in this class, his measurables are perfect. 6'6", 315 pounds. Really like what he brings to the table. Heavy hands and plenty of upper body strength. Makes it tough for defensive linemen and linebackers to get their hands or when he gets his hands on them. In the run game, just a mauler that simply drives guys back off the line of scrimmage. He tosses guys to the side pretty often. Looks pretty solid in pass protection, although one thing that I do wonder about with him is, are there going to be some squattier and speedier edges that give him a little bit of a problem? He shows nice violence at times, but has to make it more consistent when he gets to the college level. This is a guy that has the right body style, but I think one of the things that's important with him, and this is going to be one of those positions where I do wonder how much Carolina is banking on some of these guys to come in and play immediately. I think he's a guy that is really, really good if you develop him. I think he's someone that, has all the traits, has the size. Now the question is, do you give him the right amount of time to become the best player that he can become? Or do you rush him onto the field and just deal with the bumps in the road, potentially, some that could lead to him getting benched? And, again, very similar to what we talked about with the cornerback position with Kenton Dobson, if he struggles, is he another guy that just kind of gets swept under the rug and forgotten about after 1 year? I hope that's not the case. We've seen it before with offensive linemen where they get forced into action a little bit too early. It doesn't necessarily work out, and then they're having to enter the transfer portal and look for a new school. If you develop Shabazz the right way, he has a chance to be a really, really solid offensive tackle for Carolina. And, I mean, he's even one of those guys that could surprise you a little bit this year and at least become part of the rotation. My thing is I don't know if I'm counting on him to be the day one starter. We'll have to see. He's a guy that might come in and enroll early. I'm not sure what his plans are. I know they said somebody that I have that's a pretty good source said that 36 of the 39 guys are expected to enroll early. So we're not sure exactly who is amongst those guys that could enroll early and who's the guys that are going to choose not to enroll early. But certainly that's a guy that I would love to see get in there early and maybe have a chance to be a part of the rotation this year. Another guy that I would love to see that happen for is Dayron Parks, one of the recent additions for Carolina. They added him on signing day, the interior offensive lineman from Nitro High School in Nitro, West Virginia. Parks, absolute monster. I mean, this dude, 6'4", 360 pounds, and he plays like the guy that he is. I mean, a hulking offensive lineman. Absolute monster in all sense of the word. He is incredibly physical, even for an offensive lineman, and really does a good job of ragdolling guys at the point of attack in the run game. I mean, you watch his film. Well, I'll let you in on a little secret when it comes to some of these high school films. When you watch a lot of huddle tapes, and especially when you watch single game highlight tapes, there are usually like 2 or 3 plays that get pulled from each game, even for offensive linemen. You play so many snaps, but there are usually about 2 or 3 plays that get pulled and they put on a highlight tape. With this dude, I went through and watched most of his senior season, and every video that I watched, it is 8, 9, 10 clips of him just absolutely destroying people. And maybe that speaks to his level of play. I got to be honest with you. That is one of the things that I do wonder about him coming out of the state of West Virginia. Just how good is the high school ball in the state of West Virginia? I don't think it's on the same plane as a state like Virginia, for example, Carolina, either Carolina, North Carolina, South Carolina, either one of those. But I do think that he is a guy that it's going to be hard for him not to bring that physicality and that violence that he plays with over to this level. No concern about him when it comes to the motor, the mean streak, all of that stuff is there, especially for a guy of his size. His footwork looks pretty good, especially in pass protection, but this is still a guy that's going to move inside when he gets to the next level. I need to make that clear. He played offensive tackle at the high school ranks. He is a guy that ESPN lists as an offensive tackle. He is not going to play offensive tackle, not at his size. If he was to thin down, maybe you would think about playing him there. But at 360 pounds, he is the perfect type of guy to have on the interior, especially with how physical he is. He's a guy that I think, even more than JB Shabazz, I think he has a legitimate chance of playing. And part of it is that, yeah, the interior of the offensive line is going to be completely ravaged by graduations and guys leaving. That is certainly one of the reasons why. But I also think that you just look at everything that he brings to the table, especially when it comes to the violence that he plays with. That's what Carolina is looking for. So I think he's a guy that could factor in a little bit earlier than, let's say, a guy like JB Shabazz. All right, we move on to 3-star defensive lineman Jimmy Frisco Alo Suleafau. I apologize if I got that name wrong. I will definitely learn it as we go into next season. Really, it's disappointing on my part because this is a guy that I really love. Trending up really ever since he got into his senior year at Katy Jordan High School in Katy, Texas. Weighed in, at one time at 6'3", 265 pounds. I believe that actually is still the measurements that they have for him on the website, 6'4", 260. Lost a little bit of weight there. Certainly an interesting prospect that they play on the edge at the high school ranks. I think, for that role at that size, I think he definitely fits, very similar to how Milcart Abujide was built this year. But he is a guy that's very versatile, succeeds on the inside, despite not having great size. It all starts with a nice release off the line of scrimmage for him, which allows him to win reps against slower tackles and guards. Speed, not mind-blowing, but he does have the willingness and want to, which allows him to track down guys and make plays. That second effort, I could not tell you how big that is for guys, where you get on right off the line of scrimmage. You don't necessarily win, but you keep after it. That motor, that's something that we've talked about with a lot of these guys, but especially on the defensive line, you need to have that constant motor that even if you don't win immediately off the line of scrimmage, you're still fighting, you're still tracking down plays and making them. And that's what you see with Alo Suleafau here. He's a guy that plays with an impressive mix of physicality, especially for someone of his size, and does an outstanding job of mixing in technical pass rush moves when he needs to shed blocks. He utilizes his arms well and has good hand placement, which allows him to knock offensive linemen back. And his powerful upper body allows him to, at times, toss them aside, which is really something that's impressive. Figuring out which position for him going to be very key. There's no doubt about that. But I think he's got a lot of upside for both positions. We know what position he's going to play at Carolina. If he's that size, he's going to play that edge rusher position that we saw with Milcart. I think for him, one of the big things is going to be finding a little bit more explosiveness off the line of scrimmage, finding a little bit more speed in his game. If he does that, the physicality is there. There is no question in my mind that the physicality is all over his tape. That definitely shows up, and he uses those technical pass rush moves when he has to. He might have to use them a little bit more when he gets to the college level because the level of physicality is going to go up. But I really like him. I think he is very underrated. I think he's a guy that's starting to get some love here towards the end of his time at high school. He was someone that was outside of the top 500 for the longest time on both websites. Now he's jumped into that top 500, number 455 overall and the number 49 defensive lineman. You talk about someone that a lot of people may not be necessarily talking about at this point, but could jump on the radar. And this time next year, when we're sitting here, we could be talking glowingly about. That is certainly one name to remember. Jimmy Allo Suliafau, I think, is certainly a name and you need to become comfortable with. David Davis, the 3-star cornerback out of Amani Christian Academy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the number 456 overall prospect and the number 46 cornerback prospect. Davis measures in 6 foot, 190 pounds. Another versatile piece that Carolina has in that defensive backfield. This spent most of his season this year at the deep safety spot. Looked really good in that role. Very fluid getting in and out of breaks. Plenty of speed, which allows him to break on the football. Good player that shines in zone defense because of the attributes that he has, and his ability to read the eyes of the quarterback is certainly something that stands out about him. He isn't put in one-on-one coverage often, but when he is, he holds his own. He feels like a good fit at safety for me, but this could also be a guy that they look to use at corner. Carolina's done this, even under Mac Brown, they recruited guys that can play both. And I think that certainly is something that's important because you want to have that versatility. But the guy that I think they're looking for now is a clone of Jaden Patterson. And loved what I saw from him this year. I think he's going to be a big part of what Carolina does moving forward. David Davis feels like that type of player to me as well. I don't know how successful he would be as a corner because all of the film that I watched to him was him at deep safety. So I think he is certainly a guy that fits that position really well. And I think if that's where Carolina wants to play him, great. That's where he succeeded in high school. Go ahead and play him there. But if you want to play him at corner, I think it could be more of a work in progress. But I think there is ability there. I think one thing that really stands out about him that could allow him to play corner is how fluid he is getting in and out of breaks. When you're that fluid, when you're able to, really get, in and out of them quickly, because there are going to be some route runners that are going to really do a good job of sticking their foot in the ground, finding a way to free themselves up. You need someone that can really stick with them when they do those types of things. I think he's got that. I think that's one of the reasons why they look at him as a potential corner fit. But I would love him a little bit more at the safety position. I think that is certainly something that Carolina's got to figure out. But if they do, he's going to be a guy that will be able to contribute here in the near future. Maybe not immediately this year, but certainly here soon for Carolina. Move on to Xavier Griffin Haynes, 3-star edge rusher out of Rollsville High School in Rollsville, North Carolina, the number 474 overall prospect and the number 47 edge. Dude that has great length, 6'6", 230 pounds. The measurables are definitely there for him to be successful. His ability in run defense is really encouraging. Knows how to set an edge as well as just about anybody in this class. And he is certainly a guy that makes ball carriers pay when he's able to get to them in the backfield. The motor, no question about that at all. That's the one thing that I think you really love about him. One of the things that I did when I first watched him as a junior, I really thought that he compared well to Des Evans. And one of the things that I did not love the one time that I went and watched Des Evans was the attention to detail, was the competitive fire, was the motor for Des Evans. I didn't love it when I went and saw him play in person. I thought he was a guy that simply just overwhelmed people because of his size. And I think that is what is different about Xavier than what we saw from a guy like Des Evans. So I think he has a chance to be a really solid player. You see him run multiple ball carriers down from behind. He's a guy that will go up the field if he has to, and make plays. So certainly someone that I think is really encouraging in that area. His speed, very good off the edge. And when combined with the solid release off the line of scrimmage, puts him in a position to make plays consistently in the backfield. The sack numbers, not going to wow you. He's never really going to blow you away. I mean, hell, his junior year, he didn't even have a sack. And so I think there were some people that looked at that and maybe panicked a little bit and thought, man, just how good is he as a player? I think that certainly is something that, when you get to the college level, you do want to see more, than just getting to the quarterback. That's certainly something that's encouraged. Don't get it wrong. That's something that you like to see, but you would love to see a guy that actually finishes when they get to the quarterback. When the pressure is there, they can actually put the quarterback on the ground and finish those plays off with sacks. But I thought it got better this season. I think he is certainly a guy that is going to be an upside pickup for Carolina at the edge rusher spot. Do I think he's going to be a guy that starts right away for Carolina? Probably not. But I think as time goes along, especially once they add to that frame, he is certainly going to become a guy that could be a big part of what Carolina does at the edge rusher spot in future years. So definitely someone with an upside that is worth banking on if you're Carolina. You move on to 3-star defensive lineman Viliami Moala out of Thompson High School in Alabaster, Alabama. The number 487 overall prospect, the number 53 defensive lineman, has tremendous size, 6'3", 340 pounds, has the skill set to take up 2 gaps and stop the run, which is, again, what Carolina wants their nose tackles to do. Does a good job of shedding blocks with his length and size, and has a nice level of physicality that he brings to the table. Very solid release off the line of scrimmage and moves well for someone of his size. Really think this is a solid addition to this class for Carolina. I don't think he's nearly as polished as Vodney Cleveland and as Trayshawn Ruffin. Even, with Ruffin, not necessarily polished, but I don't think he has nearly the same upside as either one of those two guys. But what I do think about him is that when he got to Thompson High School down there in Alabama, he absolutely wrecked shop in the first few weeks of the season. He was a monster. So this is a guy that I think when he, wherever he's at, I do think he's going to be able to put up stats. I don't know if he's going to be able to come in and immediately have a massive impact for Carolina. I think it's possible for him to come in and potentially be that good for them. But I think it's probably going to take a little bit of time. But I love the size. I love the intensity that he plays with. And I think that what he did this year really helped him. Going to a school that has perennially produced some really, really good players year over year, I think he's certainly going to be someone that's going to benefit a lot from that. And I think he is going to be one guy that we're, going to be talking about at some point during his career at Carolina. I think he will have some sort of major effect for Carolina. It's just, again, a question of how long before he is able to potentially make that type of impact. I mean, this past year, incredibly impactful in his 1 year there. So I think he certainly is someone that I really love with the upside. You move on to Jonah Rodriguez, 3-star interior offensive lineman from Southwestern College in Chula Vista, California. JUCO transfer for Carolina along the offensive line, but he is a part of this recruiting class. Ranked as the number 45 JUCO overall prospect and the number 2 JUCO interior offensive lineman in this class. Rodriguez, another solid addition to the offensive line class, and has some experience, albeit not much, that he brings with him from the college level when he was at the FBS level with Arizona. 6'4", 300 pounds. Frame is where it needs to be, especially for a tackle at this level. Looks really powerful in run blocking situations where he does a good job of, mauling defensive ends like we talked about. That's what you want to see, right? You want to see guys that come out and just dominate their competition. And that's what you see from him in the run game. And a lot of reps with, defensive linemen a few yards down the field. So doesn't pile up a ton of pancake blocks, but certainly someone that can drive guys downfield pretty easily. Plays with the mean streak that you need to be able to play with at this level, so there's no worries there. He has violent hands and plenty of upper body strength, which allows him to succeed at the point of attack. Pass protection, probably the biggest concern with him, especially since he spent a lot of time at guard and center at his time at Arizona, but he had some solid reps on film. So that is certainly something that he is going to be able to build on once he gets to Carolina. Look, is there a chance that he could end up starting for Carolina along the offensive line? Yeah, there's always a shot that he could end up starting. There's so many guys that are exiting this program that you just never know. In an ideal situation, is he the guy that starts for you on the offensive line? Probably not. Is he someone that is a part of your rotation, though? Probably. That would be an ideal situation for him. So I think he's got some ability. I think he's someone that I would like to see as a part of Carolina's offensive line, as a part of the rotation next year, but not necessarily a guy that I look at and say, man, this dude has to be starting for Carolina along the offensive line. I do think could take him a little bit of time, but I really do like the pickup there. Move on to 3-star interior offensive lineman Will Conroy out of IMG Academy by way of Cleveland, Ohio. He is ranked as the composites or as the industry's 585th overall prospect. He is the 53rd ranked interior offensive lineman. Pretty good size, not a guy that has ideal size at 6'2.5", 280 pounds, but he is definitely a guy that Carolina really needs along the offensive line, mainly because I cannot remember the last time they recruited a high school center. It has been that long since they have brought one in, and especially one that has stayed around. They have gone the transfer portal route all of these years. I think you'll probably have Christo Kelly, who will be the starting center for this coming season for Carolina in 2026. But I think this is a guy that will be able to provide some nice depth, and I think eventually is going to be the solution at that center position. Plays with a mean streak that the Tar Heels want to have in that room, leads to a lot of pancake blocks, and opens up holes for his running backs. His athleticism allows him to thrive as a pull blocker, which he does a fair amount of, especially when the team played him at right guard prior to his time at IMG Academy. His lateral movement is solid and allows him to play in front, stay in front of most edge rushers that he faces at the high school level, but will need to improve if he's going to play tackle at the college level. I don't see that happening. I think he is definitely a guy that's on the interior. There's no doubt about that. I said, when I was scouting him on the interior, his pass protection shouldn't be much of an issue because of his strength and violent streak to be able to handle what interior defensive linemen are going to throw at him. I think he's certainly a guy that plays in a phone booth. I think that's the type of guy that he is. And because of that, I think he's going to succeed on the inside. I thought at the time when Carolina added him, he was a nice headliner for this offensive line class. Of course, it's grown since that moment. But it'll take him a little bit of time once he gets to campus. But I do think that he is someone that, because of the way that he plays, because of the mean streak, and especially because he played at IMG Academy, where they are preparing you to play at the college level. He is going to be a guy that succeeds. But this year, do I think he's going to be challenging for the starting center role? I do not. So Carolina's either got to rely on Christo Kelly or go out and get someone out of the transfer portal. We move on to 3-star cornerback Julian Peterson out of Winslow Township High School in Atco, New Jersey. Another guy that was a recent addition for Carolina, the number 617 overall prospect, the number 58 cornerback in the class. We talked about it when we were on, a couple editions of the podcast ago. He has nice size, very nice addition to this cornerback class, 6'2", 175 pounds, plenty of positional size to be able to play on the outside, and provides the versatility to play on the inside if that's where Carolina wants to play him. He is a tremendous man cover corner that can be physical at the line of scrimmage when he needs to. He has fluid hips, which allow him to open up and seamlessly stay with receivers on downfield routes, and his ability to get in and out of breaks is a major strength. One thing that may surprise you about him when I watched this film was just how good of a tackler he is and how physical he is in those situations. That's certainly something that you're wanting to see again. One of the things that you wanted to see in this class, physicality throughout the entire class. I think you see that with a lot of these guys. We've talked about mean streaks for a lot of these offensive linemen, a lot of the guys on the defensive line. We've talked about hard-hitting guys at the linebacker positions, and then we talk about physicality from a cornerback. That's what you want to see. The motor right where it needs to be, and it shows up a ton on tape. But he does have, and in terms of a nose for the football, doesn't show it a ton on film, but I think that's really because a lot of people didn't attack him. A lot of the corners, a lot of the reps that you see from him at the cornerback spot is him simply not getting the ball thrown at him because of how good he is in coverage. So he's going to be tested a little bit more at the college level. I think it's going to take him a little bit of time probably to be able to get on the field, but you never really do know. With these guys right in this 600 range, we've seen guys come from these ranges before. Another, guy that I go back to, and I know he wasn't great this year. I know that he is someone that probably is going to get phased out, will probably be in the transfer portal at some point this offseason. But you go back, you look at the freshman year of Aiden Banfield, a guy that was ranked in the 900s coming out of high school overall, and immediately became a contributor under Mac Brown back in 2024. That's where you could get some of these guys like Julian Peterson, like a couple of the other guys we'll talk about here, that sort of come out of nowhere and surprise you. We move on to 3-star edge rusher Ashton Blatt at a Central Catholic High School in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He is the number 646 overall prospect, the number 70 edge rusher in this class. He stands at 6'4", 230 pounds, already has pretty good size in both height and weight. And he is someone that has that uses his length well to keep tackles off of him in terms of getting their arms on him, being able to control him. One of the things that I think really stands out about him, as opposed to some of the other edge rushers in this class, does a good job of altering passing lanes by getting his hands up. That's certainly something that you really do like to see. He wins more often with speed rushes as opposed to bull rushes, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't play with a nice level of physicality. I do think that the physicality is there, but I do think that he is someone that tends to want to win more with his speed off the edge than with him using just a straight bull rush. His overall speed might not blow anyone away, but his ability to close in on the quarterbacks when he gets free from a block is what makes him a dangerous pass rusher. As a run defender, aggressive off the edge, and does a good job of crashing inside to make tackles at or behind the line of scrimmage. Now, one thing that's going to be interesting is how does he hold an edge? Is he going to be someone that has the physicality, that has the discipline to be able to hold the edge? We know that Xavier Griffin Haynes does. Is this a guy that can do that as well? I think that's going to be where the area where he's going to have to learn the most is that, yes, love the fact that you're able to crash in and make plays on guys in the backfield, but you're going to be facing quicker backs at this level. You're going to be facing more physical offensive lines at this level? Are you going to be able to hold and seal an edge the way that you need to at this level in the run game? His motor might be the best element of his game, and he is involved in every play and is more than willing to run down plays in the open field. If they get downfield, he is certainly a guy that's going to be chasing after guys when it comes to that. At the college level, I said he needs to add a little bit more physicality to his game and prove that he can set an edge in the run game. But I do think that this is a guy that provides plenty of potential. Probably not going to be a guy that immediately comes in, especially with the size of 6'4", 230. I don't think that's bad in terms of edge rushers. I think that's really solid. That's where a lot of the edge rushers nowadays are, but we know with this staff, they like him a little bit thicker than that. If he can get into the 240 range, that's where Tyler Thompson played at this past year and was able to get on the field. But you better be really good as a pass rusher in those situations, or better do a hell of a job of sealing an edge in the run game. I think that's something that he will have to prove to this staff, but he will certainly be a piece for Carolina in the future. Now we get to another one of my favorites in this class. That's three-star running back Crew Davis out of Iona Preparatory School in New Rochelle, New York. Davis is a running back that that was unranked at one time. I actually took this scouting report from a long time ago. But he is certainly a guy that is a tremendous player, incredibly explosive, especially in the open field, shows tremendous straight line speed, great burst constantly on his film, very decisive runner, which is one of the things that we saw, a guy like Benjamin Hall, not decisive enough as a runner. Don't have to worry about with Crew Davis. He's a guy who picks his holes quickly and hits them hard. He can create missed tackles by changing direction on a dime or by running through tackles, which allows him to pick up yards after first contact. His ability to catch the ball out of the backfield will be hard to compete with in this class, especially with how complete his route tree is for a running back. Davis is a very solid addition to this class and has a chance to be one of the most dynamic running backs that the team has had in years. His ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, look, I don't see many guys at the college level that are able to do this. I know the immediate thought is to go to a guy like a Christian McCaffrey, somebody that can catch the ball at an incredibly high rate out of the backfield, really put up. I think this is a dude that, in certain seasons could put up 400 or 500 yards receiving out of the backfield. I think that's how good he is as a route runner out of the backfield, how effective he is. But I think Christian McCaffrey is probably a little bit too much for him. Maybe a guy like Will Shipley was at Clemson, where Shipley was expected to be the light version of CMC, didn't necessarily pan out to be that, but certainly put up some decent stats while he was there. I think that's the type of player that you're looking at in Crew Davis. Love this dude. I think just everything about the cut of his jib really makes me think that he is a guy that's going to succeed at this level. And especially with the fact that Carolina was, potentially looking to bring another running back in this class, I think he's going to be motivated to prove that he is a guy that was worth being the only running back that Carolina has in this class. He's the number 668 overall prospect, the number 40 running back prospect in this class. Don't be surprised if this is a guy that when we circle back around and we're talking about, we'll say, how was he ranked this low? He should have been a guy that should have been a 4-star prospect coming out of high school. All right, we move on to 3-star cornerback Jaziel Hart at a North Cross school in Roanoke, Virginia. He is a guy that's ranked as the number 685 overall prospect, the number 63 cornerback prospect. Hart is a dynamic athlete that has found plenty of success on both sides of the ball, and appears that the team will likely play him. He's a dynamic athlete that has found plenty of success on both sides of the ball, but it appears the team will play him at corner. He is certainly a guy that I think, again, there are multiple guys that are like this in this class where, David Davis, sensational athlete as well. Jaziel Hart's a guy that's going to play corner for Carolina. Love the physicality that he brings on the outside, impress man coverage. and thrives in those situations, especially, as we talked about, something that Carolina is wanting to do more of this season, especially once, with as much man coverage as they like to play. Does a good job of getting in and out of breaks and closes on the football with just how explosive he is. Strong tackler that steps up and makes plays on the ball or makes plays in the run game. His motor runs hot, and he chases down plays from behind all the time. It makes him, or it may take him some time before he's able to be a major contributor at corner, but he has some special teams ability, which will allow him to make an early impact. I really like Jazeel Hart. Think there's some versatility stuff with him as well that you really like. He has the, enough size to play on the outside, but could be, twitchy enough to play that nickel corner spot. So I definitely think that he is someone that can succeed. And one thing I didn't talk about is the ball skills that he has. He has the ability to make plays on 50-50 balls that some of the other corners in this class might not necessarily be able to do. So I really like him. I think he's another guy very similar to Julian Peterson, where I think it could take them a little bit of time. Maybe they're not a part of the rotation this year, but as we go further on down into the future, I think they could eventually become part of what Carolina does there in the defensive backfield. Another one of my favorites in this class, 3-star interior offensive lineman Zion Smith out of DeMatha Catholic School in Hyattsville, Maryland, the number 727 overall prospect, the number 72 interior offensive lineman. He's a guy that when Carolina landed him, really nice building block of the 2026 class. He destroys defenders with how powerful his hands and upper body, how powerful his hands are, and the upper body strength is outstanding, especially in run blocking situations. He overpowers defenders constantly with the mean streak that he plays with and piles up pancakes. Moves pretty well for a guy of his size, 6'5", 300 pounds. That was the size when Carolina ended up landing him. I don't think that size has changed. Now 6'3", 315. So definitely has put on a little bit more weight there. Again, has the build perfectly to fit in immediately at this level, and certainly is a capable pull blocker. His footwork isn't the greatest, which is why he will likely kick inside, but he does have some solid lateral movement that allows him to pass protect at a solid enough level for him to be able to play guard. Playing for a national powerhouse like DeMatha, that was certainly something that helped him this season. So I think that's a guy that is used to playing against some of the types of guys that you're going to play at the college level. Really like this addition. I think he's a guy that's going to grow into this position for Carolina. Again, will you expect him to immediately step onto the field and be a starter for you? Probably not. But could he be someone that surprises some people, becomes a part of the rotation because of how physical he is? I think he certainly can do that. I think playing at DeMatha Catholic definitely helped him as well. Playing a national schedule is something that really sticks out when you're looking at some of these guys. And so I think he certainly could be someone that we're talking about as part of that offensive line rotation as we get into the season. So yeah, just one of my favorite guys in this class, just because of how physical he is, the athleticism that he shows with being a pull blocker at his size. Definitely like everything that we see from Zion Smith. Now we move on to 3-star cornerback Xavier Jackson out of Bergen Catholic High School in Burlington, New Jersey. He is the number 729 overall prospect and the number 69 cornerback. Measures in at 6'2", 185 pounds. So again, perfect size to be able to play on the outside. Has the ability to succeed in either zone or man coverage. Very important because you do want to have someone that is a little bit versatile. We've been talking about a lot of guys that really succeed in man coverage. Now you need to have some guys that can also succeed in zone coverage packages as well. He does a good job of being physical at the line of scrimmage. Really does a good job of playing the football as he makes smart breaks on the football to be able to knock it down. His speed Doesn't seem like nearly the strength that it is for some of the other defensive backs that are committed to this class. So quicker receivers could give him some issues. That's going to be a little bit of a problem. That's one of the things. That's one of the reasons why you look at him and you see him a little bit lower ranked. But I do think that there still is a lot to like about him. He is a guy that proves that he can make plays on the football, or if he can prove that he can make plays on the football consistently, there will still be a role for him here in Chapel Hill. I think it'll take a little bit of time, but this is a guy that can develop because of his size, because of his ability to play the football, that could eventually be a piece for Carolina on the outside at outside corner. Then you get to 3-star safety Jamarian Gordon out of Jackson High School in Jackson, Alabama. He is the number 778 overall prospect, the number 67 safety in the class. Gordon measures out very well, 6 foot, 185 pounds, and he is a guy that is capable of playing anywhere in the defensive backfield, corner, nickel, or safety. The overall pass coverage ability across the board is outstanding, especially for someone that is put in a lot of one-on-one coverage situations out at the corner spot where he spent the majority of his junior season. He has fluid hips, which allow him to stay with wide receivers down the field, and he has some nice explosion that allows him to go up and knock the football down. Straight line speed is good, but his closing speed is really what stands out and allows him to be consistently in position to make plays on the football. Combine it with his willingness to come downhill and lay the wood on running backs or receivers at or near the line of scrimmage, and it makes sense as to why they look at him as someone that can thrive at the safety spot at the next level. Again, one of the things we talk about with the defensive backs here, we mentioned it with a few other guys, physicality. And that's what he brings to the table. Now, again, figuring out where he's going to play is going to be important. But I think he's a guy that, like some of the guys that Carolina's brought in recent years in that defensive backfield, he has so much versatility that eventually he's going to get a shot somewhere on the field. I think he's pretty underrated. I think he's a guy that really started out this process a 4-star prospect. Due on certain websites. He was a composite 4-star and dropped all the way to where he is now. I think he's a guy that really is going to have a chance to be a pretty solid player, could surprise some people early on in his time in Chapel Hill, so keep an eye on Jamarian Gordon. We move on to Anthony Hall at a Dexter School in Boston, Massachusetts. He is the top-ranked player in the state of Massachusetts and is a true offensive guard, which surprises you, with his athletic ability at his size. He does an outstanding job as a pull blocker in the run game. He does a good job opening his hips easily and shows a nice burst to get in, to get out in front of his running backs. Strong run blocker, which doesn't surprise anybody with his strong upper body strength. And then he is a guy that does simply overpower defensive linemen and drive them either straight back or into the ground for a pancake block. He does a really good job of getting off of his initial block and climbing to the second level to get a hat on a linebacker or safety. That's key. A guy that can really work at multiple levels. Dispose of a defensive lineman, climb to that second level and make plays there. I think he's certainly someone that can do that. Again, his size, 6'3", 350 pounds. I mean, this is a huge, huge dude at that size. So certainly someone that Carolina fans are going to like, especially if he brings that level of physicality. His footwork is very solid, especially for an interior offensive lineman at the high school level, and it shows up with how well he pass protects. Biggest question for him is the level of competition. You come out of the state of Massachusetts, it's not going to be great. So I think this is going to be a steep learning curve for him. I think it'll take him a little bit of time, but I do think that Hall has all the tools, has all the traits to be a guy that can be a contributor for Carolina along the offensive line. I don't know if he's a guy that I look at. I like Zion Smith a little bit better than him, but I do think that he is certainly a guy that within a couple of years we could be talking about having a big effect for Carolina. So, I mean, certainly, someone with the size already that, really stands out. I think he is someone that Tar Heel fans will love. I mean, especially with the nickname Big U-Haul, that's going to be one that's going to catch on very quickly in Chapel Hill. So I think he is definitely someone that Tar Heel fans are excited about. Speaking of guys that Tar Heel fans are excited about, how about one of the longest standing commits in this class? 3-star cornerback Jaden Jefferson out of De La Salle School in Concord, California. Right there, all you need to know about his level of competition. It's tremendous. Number 835 overall prospect in the class, the number 76 cornerback prospect. And this is a guy, smallest guy in this class, even smaller than CJ Sadler, 5'9", 155 pounds. I don't think he put on he got to 165 pounds this year. So still the smallest guy in this class for Carolina, no doubt about that. But he is an absolute lightning bolt. He ran recently in the 100 meters. He ran a 10.01, which is just absolutely flying. I mean, maybe the fastest guy in this class on either side of the ball across the country. I think, this is one that's going to be tough to figure out where do you play him, because with that type of speed, you're going to want to play him on the offensive side of the ball because that side needs some more speed. But, when I look at him, there's a lot of things to like just across the board. Offensively and as a returner, he has the speed and great suddenness in the open field, which allows him to make defenders miss and stay on his feet. At his size, he will likely slide in offensively as a slot receiver. So it would be nice to get a better look at just how good his hands and how crisp his route running is. They didn't use him a lot at the wide receiver position in high school, so that's certainly something that you want to see defensively. He shines with his physicality that shows up in a multitude of different ways. So even as small as he is, very physical. He is a very strong press man coverage corner who likes to get his hands on the receiver off the line of scrimmage and hand battle down the field. Love that. Love the fact that he wants to be physical. That's certainly something that Carolina will love because you just didn't have that this past year. His ball skills are a strength as well, and he does a good job of picking his moments to make plays on the football. Very fluid hips, which allows him to open up easily and stay with receivers. And his willingness to tackle and lay the wood when he gets to the ball carrier is impressive. Because of his size, he would be reserved to a nickel corner spot, but there is plenty of potential there. I think this guy is, again, it's going to be the most important thing is figuring out where you're going to play him, because it's really tempting to play him on the offensive side of the ball. You got to make sure he can catch the ball consistently for you and make plays in the open field. But with that speed, I feel pretty confident. This could be another guy that I wouldn't sleep on Carolina maybe trying to play him on both sides of the football. Now, I think this is someone that's probably going to specialize more on one side of the ball than CJ Sadler. I don't think he's necessarily going to be as open to playing both sides of the ball, but you never really know. So they look at him on Rivals as a corner. I think he certainly is. That's my favorite position of him. I think I'd rather see him at slot corner, but I think slot receiver is certainly on the table for him as well. We'll have to see ultimately how he balances out with a guy like CJ Sadler, but with his speed, you're going to have to find ways to get him on the field. Now we move on to 3-star safety Julian Burns out of Neville High School in Monroe, Louisiana. The number 842 overall prospect and the number 82 safety. He's a player who might be ranked, but feels severely underrated by what he has put on film. The most notable thing about his game is just how physical he is. This dude, I mean, again, we're just talking about it with every defensive back that we're bringing up. We're talking physicality. might be the hardest hitting safety in the class. That's what I wrote about him in my scouting report. He just absolutely lays the wood on guys. And that's part of the reason why he's so good at doing that, that there are people that think he's going to play off-ball linebacker. So he's got some size to him as well. This is going to be another guy where they got to figure out what they're going to do with them. But he's 6'2". So he's got nice height. I think, if you're going to play him at off-ball linebacker, he's going to have to be probably in the 220s to be able to play there. He only weighs 187, so I'd play him at safety. But the way that he hits, I mean, he is going to absolutely light guys up at this level. While he loves the big hit, he's also a strong tackler who makes sure to wrap up on plays and isn't in position where he isn't in position to make that big play. There should be no questions about his motor as he makes plays all over the field. His closing speed is promising, and the hope is that he can translate it over into coverage skills if he's going to stick at safety at this level. That's going to be the biggest thing for him, is that he's got to get a little bit better in coverage. He loves hitting people. He loves being a part of the run game, but I think that he really needs to learn how to play the football in coverage. If he does learn how to be a better coverage safety, then I think he's going to be someone that'll stick at that position. If not, they may have to play him more at linebacker. He has the versatility, though, to play safety, linebacker, or even nickelback. So I think that makes him extremely valuable. He will have a special teams role. There is no question about that. The motor, the fact that he loves to hit, how physical he plays, he's going to be out there at some point this year, probably as a special teams member. It's just how quickly can he develop as a coverage safety. I think that's going to really determine ultimately what position he plays and how early he plays. You move on to Carson Sneed, the 3-star tight end commit out of Donaldson Christian Academy in Nashville, Tennessee. This is another one that really had a massive fall from where he was when he was originally ranked. He was a 4-star prospect at one time, and now he is a very solid 3-star prospect. The number 857 overall prospect, the number 56 tight end. I thought this was a really big pickup for Carolina at the time when they got him. 6'6", 248 pounds. So plenty of size that he brings to the table. Isn't throwing many 50-50 balls, but when you do, he is a guy that does a great job of high pointing the ball and coming down with those catches. Prior to the catch, he does a tremendous job of freeing himself up with shifty route running, and that translates after the catch because he's able to create some big plays with what he's able to do in the open field. At 6'6", 248, it's hard to think that you're going to necessarily be a nimble tight end, a guy that creates space that really thrives in the receiving game more than he does as a blocker. But he does. That's really where he shines, is as a receiver. So this is the perfect addition to the class because it's the guy that we'll tell you a little bit about later, Dream Rashad, a little more physical, a little more of a blocker. I think that certainly is going to balance out well. He's proved that he's a guy who can stretch the field after questions about whether or not he could do that in his sophomore season. Isn't a blazer, but has nice speed that allows him to pull away from some defenders when he gets into the open field. Spent time at tackle in his sophomore season, which was incredibly valuable and showed just how effective of a blocker he can be. And he has a little bit of a mean streak that he plays with. So, I mean, you love that, right? Even though he isn't necessarily a guy that that you look at and think is a blocking tight end. You think, hey, this is a guy that is a really good receiver but can also block. Well, yeah, he definitely is, but he's also a guy who's played on the offensive line before. He knows what it takes. He's got that right mindset. So I really like that about him. I think, a guy that is still a little raw and could grow into an even better player, in his time at Carolina. Probably going to take a little bit of time, but I do think that he is certainly someone that if Carolina needs early in his time next year, wouldn't stun me if he is a guy that finds his way onto the field. I think Giving him some time, not necessarily the worst thing, but if you need him, he's certainly going to be a guy that would be able to be there. All right, David Jackson, the 3-star defensive lineman from Good Counsel High School in Olney, Maryland. He's a guy that ranks as the number 926 overall prospect and the number 99 defensive lineman. Brings really good size at 6'2", 285. Not necessarily as beefy as some of the other guys in the room. So certainly if he's going to stick at that defensive tackle spot, probably going to want him to get into the 300s. But he does an amazing job of getting off of blocks and making plays. His suddenness makes it difficult for offensive guards to stay in front of him, as does his powerful hands. He is a really solid form tackler that will make you pay from time to time if given the opportunity. High motor, once again, certainly something that we're always looking for. Plenty of versatility to be able to make plays downfield, and he does a good job of getting his hands up if he can't get to the quarterback. He will have to add more physicality to his game to play on the interior of the defensive line, but he has a chance to be a difference maker within his first few years as a pass rushing defensive tackle. That's the thing that really sticks out about Jackson. The other two guys that we talked about are really big time run defenders. Those are guys, even Moala, big time run defender. Those three guys, that's what they're going to be there to do. This is your guy that rushes the passer. And Carolina did not have a lot of that this year. A lot of their guys were really run built, guys that were there to stop the run consistently. And then if they gave you anything in pass rush, it was, a pleasant surprise. David Jackson is a guy that specializes in rushing the quarterback. So may not want him to get too big. It's 6'2", 285 is pretty solid for him. And I certainly think he can succeed at that one. And actually, when you look at him now, he's actually 300 pounds. So he has gotten up to that area where Carolina is going to want him. That's actually really interesting. Now checking on Rivals that he's gotten up to that size. So he could be a guy that could make an impact earlier than maybe we thought, especially if he proves that he can rush the passer out of the defensive line spot now that he has the size. Biggest thing for him is going to be, can he handle the level of physicality? Is there some physicality that he was able to add to his game? I think that's going to be important to see when he gets to campus at Carolina. All right, you move on to Kamistri Young out of Cardinal Mooney High School in Parrish, Florida. This is a guy that I really, really love. The number 950 overall prospect, the number 140 wide receiver in the class, according to the industry comparisons. Man, he's better than that. I mean, he is an explosive playmaker and might be the most explosive playmaker in this class. 6'2", 185, has the size to play on the outside, and that's where he played almost exclusively this year. As expected with his yards per reception, which is 23.5 per game, he does a tremendous job of creating separation, especially on downfield routes. Some of the more technical situations, he runs routes so hard and crisp, it allows him to get open on the shorter routes. Not only is he explosive before the catch, but he's outstanding straight line speed is what allows him to pull away from defenders after the catch. He's got some shiftiness to him that allows him to make guys miss in the open field, and he turns short gains into explosive plays. This is one of those guys that I wrote in the scouting report is an underrated gem for Carolina. I love this pickup, man. This dude was a guy that I didn't even know about until Carolina ended up flipping his commitment, or maybe the day before I had seen something about him and was like, let me look into this guy. You should love him. You should absolutely love him as a Carolina fan, because he is going to bring something that you did not have in the offense this past year, which is explosion. So I think he's going to be a great player for Carolina. Maybe it does take him a little bit of time because maybe he's not able to win as easy downfield when he gets to this level. But man, when you average 23.5 yards per reception, you are an explosive player. And I think based on what I've seen from him on film, he's going to be a guy that can succeed. Physicality might be something that bothers him a little bit, but he's a very interesting name to keep an eye on for Carolina in this class. All right, we move on to Nick Fiamura out of Belmont Hill School in Foxborough, Massachusetts, 6'5", 295. That was the same weight that he was at when he played as a junior. He provides some nice promise as a developmental guy, very physical at the point of attack, as witnessed by the number of pancake blocks and toss-asides that he has on his film. Heavy hands that are very impactful, and a big part of the reason why he is so impactful. His versatility will be very valuable at the next level, as he has strong tape on both sides of the offensive line at the offensive tackle positions. His strength is as a run blocker. I think that's the area where he really is the best. And there are times where he was pushed back a bit in pass coverage, but he still has some solid lateral movement that allows him to stay in front of most edge rushers. Biggest concern with him, and the reason why I think it'll take a little bit of time, is, again, the state of Massachusetts and the competition level. I just don't think it's great, not like some of these other guys that are coming in here. So I think it could take a little bit of time, but I like Fiamura. I love the mindset that he brings. Definitely a guy that seems bought in on being a Tar Heel, and I think wants to come in here and grind. And so, again, we talked about physical at the point of attack, heavy hands, definitely someone that looks like he's got a little bit of strength to him. That's what you're looking for in this class along the offensive line. But it's one of the reasons why, with him, J.B. Shabazz being the only two offensive tackles that Carolina brought in this class, that's why I think you have to go into the transfer portal and get someone at that offensive tackle spot. All right, guys, I know it's getting late here. Hang in there if you're still watching with me here tonight. If you're still listening to this edition of the podcast, really appreciate you. I know it's a long one, but we are going through every guy in this class. We are almost through the 39 guys in this class. Only a few more to go here, but still some really talented guys that are worth talking about. 3-star wide receiver Nyquir Hilton out of Winslow Township High School up there in Atco, New Jersey. We told you about his teammate a little bit earlier. The number 1,142 overall prospect and the number 173 wide receiver. An explosive player that can that should bring the element to this receiving core that they were lacking this past season. His ability to win and create separation downfield consistently leads to big plays, something that is very welcome for a team that simply cannot do that at this point. His speed allows him to create separation, and it's what allows him to make plays after the catch as well. He is also seems to have pretty reliable hands, something that will be welcomed by this Tar Heel team. Not that we had a ton of drops this year, but certainly something that I think Carolina is looking for. With how much we have seen the young wide receivers on the field this year, wouldn't be shocked if Hilton or any of the other true freshman wide receivers can prove themselves to this staff. That's one big thing, that with the wide receivers and with any of the skill position guys, corners, any of these guys, would not shock me if they throw some of these guys out there. Because we saw Madrid Tucker, we saw Shenard Clower. There were some names that we did not think we would see at all playing this year that got out there. Now, again, maybe that was them trying to figure out what exactly they had on the roster, but it wouldn't shock me if they do the same thing next year. And Hilton, another guy that can win downfield. Now, the thing with him is you look at his size, 5'11", 170, not nearly as tall. So I wonder if he's a guy that really is going to be able to play on the outside, or if they're going to look at him as more of a slot guy at that size. That's why I think a guy like Kamistry Young is a little more interesting than, let's say, a guy like Nyquir Hilton, even though they have similar skill sets. So we'll see. We'll see which one is able to maybe factor in a little bit more in his freshman season. You then get to 3-star tight end Dream Rashad, one of the flips on National Signing Day at a Buford High School in Lawrenceville, Georgia. He is the number 1,346 overall prospect in the class, the number 83 tight end in the class, 6'6", 235. Can you believe that this guy, prior to this year, was a starting quarterback at the high school level in the state of Georgia? That's a lot of quarterback to be able to handle there at that size. But I believe he added a little bit more size to his frame once he switched over to tight end. But even still, that's pretty crazy. So this dude is raw, very raw. I think that's part of the reason why he is as lowly ranked as he is. But I'm going to tell you right now, with his size, could be a guy that should be a threat in the red zone. Throw the ball up to him, let him go get it. Didn't receive a lot of 50-50 balls this year, which is a little disappointing. But I did like the way that he caught the football this year in his first year as a tight end. Still some work to do in that area. I don't think it's perfect, but I think that it's certainly something that you can work with. Route running, not the most technical. It's going to take him a little bit of time to get used to that, but he does a good job of finding grass and getting open. That's really the most important thing. Just find a way to get open for me. Especially at the high school level. Once you get to the college level, we can work on some of the more technical things. Really surprised as a blocker in his first year, to go from being a quarterback and then becoming a guy that gets into that mindset of being able to block somebody along the offensive line and run blocking situations. Think that was something that was really interesting to watch. I loved it. I thought he was very physical at the point of attack. And it only feels like he's scratching the surface as to what he could be as a blocker. So I think he is someone that is going to be really successful as a blocker at the college level. We'll just have to wait and see how he comes along as a receiver. Good upside. He's not going to be a guy that I think impacts year one. He's going to take a little bit of time. But, man, if he can build off of what he did in his first year at the high school level of playing that position, he has a chance to be a pretty good player. All right, 3-star linebacker Jaden Griffin-Haynes out of Rollsville High School in Rollsville, North Carolina. He is the number 1361 overall prospect in the class. The number 124 linebacker. Jaden is 6'3", 210 pounds. That was in his junior year, so let's see if that's changed at all for him. Actually got a little bit lighter, 6'3", now 200 pounds for him this season, so that is certainly interesting. You look at the way that he plays, very physical downhill run defender, something you would not expect to see from a guy that was a wide receiver at one time, turned linebacker, but he makes ball carriers pay once he gets to them. Like his brother, the motor, not in question. He is a very high energy play type of guy, and he allows him to get into the backfield and make plays, and is certainly someone that is successful as a blitzer. He looks a little stiff in pass coverage. That's something that I did think was interesting, but he didn't put a ton of that on tape. But it makes sense that he can make plays in that area when he does drop back in coverage because he is a former receiver. This is a guy that is probably going to take a little bit of time. I don't know if he's necessarily going to come in and immediately impact this. But again, love the physicality, love the motor, love the playing style. I think there's potential there for him. So give him a little bit of time, and you never know what he can become. All right, fellow 3-star linebacker Jordan Avenger out of Orangeburg Wilkinson High School in Orangeburg, South Carolina. The number 1,454th overall prospect in the class. The number 132 linebacker in the class. Nice depth addition, as I said when we talked about him the other day for Carolina in this class. Brings solid athleticism to the table as someone who can play both sides of the ball, but isn't someone that's going to blow you away with great speed. The thing that he does bring to the table is a physical downhill presence, which allows him to make ball carriers pay when he meets them in the hole. Very similar to what we just talked about with Jaden Griffin-Haynes. Like we've seen with a lot of Belichick recruits, the motor is very, very high. Allows him to chase ball carriers down from behind and make plays down the field. He's a good, looks solid in pass coverage and does a good job of playing the football when he has the chance to. Not great, but certainly a guy that can hold his own there. An area that he's going to have to improve on, but certainly not terrible. And he's, not going to be the guy that's going to get on the field early. Not going to be what Calvin Thomas is, not going to be what DQ Forkpa is. Those guys, they're going to play early. They're going to play a lot, potentially, for Carolina during their careers. I think Avenger's a guy that's a nice depth piece. Certainly someone that Carolina, will, hope can come along as time goes on. But again, this is a position where you never know who's going to emerge here. One of the best linebackers that Carolina's had recently is a guy who used to play quarterback in Chad Surratt. So you never know who ends up surprising out of this group. Avenger could be one of those guys down the line that ends up surprising. Certainly like his addition to the back end of this room. All right. Now we get to the last skill position player, 3-star wide receiver, Zamarius Robertson out of Dillon High School in Dillon, South Carolina. The number 1,463 overall prospect and the number 222 wide receiver. Robertson is a guy who won't blow you away by anything that he puts on film, but he's a really solid all-around player. Provides some nice versatility as a guy who has the frame to play on the outside, but also has enough twitch to play in the slot. He's 6'1", 165 pounds, so he's pretty thin. He's going to have to probably add a little bit of size before he ends up playing. His speed after the catch is promising, and he has some shiftiness to his game, which allows him to make defenders miss in the open field. Does a good job on winning routes on all three levels of the field, especially in the short and intermediate portions of the game. That's where Carolina succeeded this year. Maybe he's a guy that can succeed eventually for Carolina there in the future. He will have to diversify his route tree at the next level, but he does run his routes hard, which is why he's able to free himself up. He won't come in with much hype, but he is a guy that could surprise some people once he gets to campus as a reliable option that just gets open. Yeah, that's the thing, man. Is he going to come in and factor in this season? Probably not. He doesn't do anything that Carolina is lacking. Like, he's not a super explosive guy in terms of his speed, in terms of being able to win downfield, but he is a guy that's really solid, could be a reliable option for Carolina at some point. It's just, does he stick around long enough to be able to do that? I think that's going to be the important part for him. So we'll see. Developmental guy, but I really do like him as well. And then you have the two specialists here that round out the class. David Green at a High Point Christian Academy in High Point, North Carolina, the number 2,454th overall player in the class, and the number 1 kicker. So Carolina with a nice addition there. Green, an extremely powerful leg, which could probably connect from 55 based on how easy his 51-yarder looked during his sophomore season. The power makes him a huge weapon as a kickoff specialist and could be the way for him to contribute early if the starting kicking job is not up for grabs. We'll have to see. Reese Verhoff is going to graduate, so we'll see whether or not Carolina will have that starting kicking job up for grabs or if they'll go grab someone out of the portal that can come in and kick for them this year. Accuracy will be important, but considering he has improved his field goal percentage in each of his years at the high school level, there's no reason to believe that he won't be able to do that once he gets to the college level. I like him. I thought this was a guy that was worth investing a scholarship on at the time when Carolina got him. I think he's very solid even to this point. And so guy that can nail one from 51 yards in high school certainly has the length to be able to succeed. Once he gets to this level, it's going to be more about consistency and accuracy for him if he wants to be the starting kicker for Carolina this year. Last guy, another recent addition for Carolina, 3-star punter Adam McCann Gibbs out of Abbey CBS Grammar School in Newry, Ireland. He is a guy that is rated as the number 2,585 overall prospect and the number 7 punter. Again, we're going off of film of him on Twitter, just punting into a big old rugby net that we're going off of there. You know, there are some people that rate him as a kicker, many people that believe he's a better kicker than he is a punter, but certainly a guy that I think could grow into the role as time goes along. Powerful leg is what we've seen with some of the kicks that he's had on video. But again, never played organized football. So it's going to be really difficult for him right off the bat to come in and necessarily be immediately successful. That's why I think you're either going to have to rely on Jacob Horvath this year, or you're going to have to go into the portal to get somebody. So that is the 39-man class for the Tar Heels in this 2026 recruiting class. In terms of the names that did not sign, there were 2 guys that were committed to Carolina, actually 3 guys that were committed to Carolina heading into the day that did not sign. Darian Lewis, he actually announced the night before, a 3-star safety, that he was flipping his commitment to UNLV. He ended up signing with them. And then there's 2 guys that did not sign with any schools, as far as I know. Keegan Chapman, the brother of Keon Chapman, he ends up, basically decommitting, I guess, from Carolina, very silently decommitting from Carolina, and he does not end up signing with anybody. And then you have Lawrence Brown, who ends up flipping his commitment from Carolina to NC State, an edge rusher, developmental edge rusher, a guy that, I think would have been a nice addition for Carolina. Went to Grayson High School down there in Loganville, Georgia. One of the best schools in the entire country. He missed a lot of this season due to injury as well. So certainly wish him the best in terms of his recovery from that. But he's going on to NC State to face Carolina. That's going to be a really interesting one. Certainly one to monitor over the next few years. But, a couple misses for Carolina. They wanted Carson Baker, the running back out of the state of Florida. Couldn't land him after the Florida Gators, he's out of the state of Georgia, was originally committed to Florida and then backed off of that commitment. He went to Texas A&M. You had Julian Walker, the edge rusher out of the state of South Carolina, Dutch Fork High School there, who Carolina was pushing for very, very hard at the end. They didn't end up landing him, but he did end up flipping his commitment from Michigan to South Carolina. So they lose the battle of the Carolinas there. And then Assad Chapman, a JUCO transfer. All those guys announced on Thursday, and that was part of the reason that we pushed it back, thinking that Carolina was going to land at least one of those guys. Assad Chapman goes and follows his brother to the University of Texas, San Antonio. So that is your look at the class, guys. Make sure you give us your reviews of this class. We'd love to hear from you guys. And again, we will have this posted for you guys. We'll break down some of these videos as well to break down some of all 39 of these guys. We'll mark the video up for you, try to get you the easiest way to go through all this in case you missed some of it. But appreciate those that stuck with us through the entire time. It was so much fun going through this class again. Class that ranked number 17 overall, according to 24/7 Sports, number 18 overall, according to On3 and Rivals, and number 12 overall for ESPN. 39 players strong that are coming to Chapel Hill. And we said earlier, 36 of them is the rumor in terms of the number of guys that are expected to sign. So that are expected to enroll early for Carolina in January. That would be huge for Carolina to get those guys in. In terms of everything else that's going on with Tar Heel football, go over to the website, HeelToughBlog.com. If you're still up and you want to get some late night reading in, we've got articles up about all 5 of the players that entered the transfer portal today. Even a guy like Khalil Conley, he gets his own article. Every one of those guys that entered the portal today are up there for you guys, and even the guys that entered yesterday, you can go check those guys out as well. And we will have you covered over the weekend. We expect more guys are going to be entering the portal. That number will only continue to grow. So make sure that you are checking in on all of that over on HeelToughBlog.com. And, of course, any other news that comes out around the program, any other recruiting news, we'll start to turn our attention more to the 2027 class for you guys. So make sure that you keep up with all of that over there on the website. Basketball side of things, the team getting ready to take on Georgetown this weekend. Josh will have you covered with a preview of the game on Sunday morning, and then he'll have a recap for you either Sunday night or Monday for you. And we will, of course, be back on the Four Corners podcast. If you missed it earlier tonight, right before I did this, where I talked for 2 hours straight by myself, amazing. We did talk about the Georgetown game in depth for you guys, so make sure you head over there to the web to either the Twitter page, the Facebook page, or the YouTube page, and check out that edition of the podcast as well. Get ready for that game with Georgetown. It's probably a little bit more important than maybe you thought coming into the season. So we encourage you to do that. Make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. That would greatly help us if you could do that for us. And so that's going to wrap it up for tonight's edition of the podcast. Really appreciate all you guys that stuck it out with us here. There's still some people holding on there on Facebook. Hopefully you didn't fall asleep while we were doing this, but if you did, understandable. Just remember to make sure that you give us a like on the video. We would greatly appreciate that. Same thing if you're hanging on over there with us on YouTube. But that wraps it up officially for this edition of the podcast. Want to thank all you guys for watching and listening. And as always, go Tar Heels.